Bum, bum, bum. We are live. Look, Wilson is here right as we go live.
Cool.
Maybe. He's spinning.
American internet.
Yep. Nice and slow. There's Wilson. Good evening.
What's up?
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
All righty. We're just talking the Mocha Fest.
Oh, you
Have you ever been there?
going?
Yeah,
Years
I'll be going
ago.
finally.
Oh,
This year, because my school will have a table. So I'll be manning the table for Pratt. If you want to stop by.
I'll see if
March
I
it
can.
is, I think. But like my friend Ed always goes, and I've always meant to go, but I just never have.
I went there a few times. I couldn't sell really much. I fear that my books were too mainstream and too polished.
Yeah, Mocha's really
if I made
small press and
photocopies of if I made
That's what you should have
photocopies of
done.
them and stapled them together, I would have probably sold out on them. But mines were too polished.
Speaking of which, I got to show you this. Got the new Spawn this week.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Look where that staple is.
Wow.
Right near the Y and only, for those who don't see. Yeah, it's a little off. I mean, that staple up top is a little off. That staple's a lot off.
Look at that. Your own limited edition staple
Yep. Special
offset staple. What would we call that?
I was reading
It's
the
not
book.
a misprint.
Production error.
Production error. Okay, yeah.
It's like once you get to a certain point in the book, the pages don't turn right. You're like, why is this bottom page sticking? Well, duh, that's why the bottom page is sticking.
Fantastic.
But it only goes halfway through the book. So the first half of the book is fun. Where is it? There it is, right next to the caption box.
Oh, fantastic.
Other than that, a nice issue of Spawn. Though I realized this week, like last year, I think it was, I had a ton of post-apocalyptic books. Right now, this week, I got 3 books that take place in hell. That have like hell wars going on. And I'm just like, I think that's this year's theme, this fall's theme at least. Good evening, Tit Goblin. Agent 00 something. Did you assassinate the Indian president and blame it on the Canadians this week?
It was an accident. I didn't know the curry was bad.
He can't tell you that.
No, the Canadian government accused the Indian government of sending a secret agent to murder some other ethnic group.
I saw a headline of that, but I didn't read it. Yeah.
I don't constantly news, so I have no idea what's going on in the world.
Good evening, youngsters. Good evening, Mind the Comics. Yeah, we got some sad news in the comic world this week. One of my favorite cartoonists died, Joe Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Of Joe Matt's Peep Show. 60 years old. They said he died of a heart attack at his drawing board. I don't know if you guys have ever read Peep Show. I actually just reread. This is the original graphic novel, which is a collection of a bunch of his strips. Let me just show you. I'm going to make this big because the strips are so small.
Mm-hmm.
This is his original stuff that he was in drawn. Oh, there's a really small one that was in drawn in quarterly, and he had like 1 page, maybe 2, So he did these jam-packed, and they're all autobiographical strips. And he was just one of my favorites of the late 80s, early 90s. I always say that most, like mainstream comic book fans, the 80s and late 80s and early 90s is defined by like Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson, whoever else was popular at the time. All those Image guys, even when they're at Marvel. The late 80s, early 90s to me were defined by Joe Matt, Seth, Chester Brown, Peter Bagg, and Dan Clowes. Those were my big guy. Those were the guys who made that time period for me. So that one of them has died. It's just like, whoa. Oh, so you've got I don't know if this came with the book or not, but I've got a peep. It must have. I came with where else would I get a Peep Show bookmark? But that's in here too. But he does these funny but often poignant and self-effacing. He does not come off across good in them. Autobiographical comics. Hence it's called Peep Show, because you get a peep into his life. Well, answer this then. Have you ever been a member of the Spawn Party? Answer the question, sir. Jared, rat him out if he doesn't talk. A member of the Spawn Party. But I was sad to see he died. Like I said, only 60. Died, and his main vices, as you learn from this, is he's really cheap. He has a porn addiction and can't keep a girlfriend a lot of the time. So that's real good stuff. Like I said, when I actually reread it all back in, I think it was just I checked my calendar right in the year 2000. I reread all this Peep Show stuff. There's only about 14 issues of it. That came out over 15 years. So he wasn't very prolific. I don't know how he. Well, he also did. Matt Wagner was one of his college classmates. I forget which school in Philadelphia they went to, but he's been friends with Matt Wagner since college. So Matt Wagner would have him color his stuff. Like he colored Batman Grendel. Amongst other things. Matter of fact, in this, he complains when he has to make a living and color other people's stuff and not work on his own, which he doesn't work on nearly enough. So you might have seen his name in some Batman comics or other Matt Wagner projects. I know he's done other things with Matt. But that one hit hard reading Joe Matt died. I was just like, what? Joe Matt, one of my favorites. Like I said, I don't know how many people know, but a lot of people, Dean Haspiel wrote a nice little piece on him that ended with like I said, he shows you his warts and all life and habits in here. And one of his habits is he pees in the sink. He uses his sink like a urinal.
Okay.
Whatever. He's got his reasons. Everybody else goes, what? And Dean Haspield's newsletter this week, he was talking about. Matter of fact, I get Ed Brubaker's newsletter too, and he was talking about Joe Matt, and so was Dean. And Dean is like, instead of pouring one out for Joe Matt, take a piss in the sink for Joe Matt.
So he's
all right.
So he's a cartoonist's cartoonist.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, he was
people.
He was pretty big in the early 90s among alternative cartoonists, sort of thing.
Yeah, I've read a couple of people who talked about it and talked about him, and it was like, well, I never met him as far as I could recall. And
I never met him either.
The art, like, I've seen it around, but but no, and did not know him. And it's funny because I do joke around how small the comic book industry is, but sometimes you just never pass the same person.
Right.
You'll have mutuals, tons and
Right.
tons of mutuals.
There's
And I
only
did
one
see a
degree
lot
of
of people.
separation.
Right, exactly. So I was like, it was wild, and it was like, and at his art desk, which is, I think, the way Jack Kirby went.
Joe Matt was American, but he lived in Canada quite a bit because that's where his girlfriend was. And when I think it was Joe Matt, Chester Brown, and Seth all lived in Montreal near each other for a few years in the 90s. I don't know how long, like, because I think he was in Los Angeles when he died, and he'd been in Los Angeles for a long time. But a lot of these stories take place in Philadelphia or Montreal. I think he comes from near Philadelphia, and he went to school in Philadelphia and then moved to Montreal after college because his girlfriend was up there, Trish.
I wonder if Matt Wagner ever asked him, why don't I ever see you with a girlfriend? I have a girlfriend. She lives in Canada.
No, because he never had to ask that because Joe Matt's girlfriend was Matt Wagner's wife's sister.
Oh,
who was I think Diana Schultz's sister.
Oh,
Diana Schultz, who was the editor at Comico and other places over the years. Her sister, she introduced her sister to Matt Wagner, and I think Diane Schultz's husband was Bob Schreck too, the marketing guy who was around. Well, if memory serves, but yeah. So Matt Wagner never had to ask him that because he knew exactly who she was. his sister-in-law. Though I think after a few years he broke up with her because staying with Joe Matt isn't an easy thing. He's a bit of a neurotic nut, as seen in his comics. And Matt Wagner appears in some of the comics. You know, Seth and Chester Brown have appeared in some of the comics because it's autobiographical.
So compared to Harvey Pekar, who is more neurotic?
Ooh, Harvey Pekar, I would say. Robert Crumb was a big influence on him too.
Yeah, I can tell.
I would say he was, in terms of neurotic cartoonists, he was one step down from Pekar and Crumb. But he's not neurotic. He's one step up from the rest of us at least. And he just snuck into Canada too. He didn't tell him he was going to be living there. But since he did all his working through the post, I don't think he ever had to report anything to Canada. But yeah, one of my favorites, just 3 years older than me, even too, passed on. Wonder how old Matt Wagner is now. Is he the same age as Joe Matt or a couple of years older? I've always got the feeling he was a couple of years older, but I don't know.
Okay, so Matt Wagner was born October 9th, 1961. He's 61.
Okay, so a couple of if he was that makes Matt born in 63, so he was a couple of years older than Joe Matt. So he's in his early 60s, Matt Wagner. Oh, here's something I got in the mail this week. You think I paid too much for that $84, $25 Great Gatsby Kickstarter. But no, in the mail this week, I got myself a bookmark. A Great Gatsby, which I assume is one of the add-ons to the Kickstarter. I don't even remember. Nice foil on the back. Ooh, this makes it all worth it. But this
That might
came in
be
the
real
mail.
gold leaf.
I was like, what? Why is Clover Press sending me some? Especially since do you remember that Clover Press comic I got that I subscribed to and got the 5 first issues? Well, the second issue hit the comic shops like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I still haven't gotten mine. So I'm just like, I wonder when that's showing up. Because when the first issue was out, like the creators were like, "Oh, we're sending the first issue out." Da 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 da. Second issue hit the comic shops a couple of weeks ago. Radio silence from them. I'm like, I wonder what's happening with that second issue of the comic I can't even remember the name of now. By the people whose names I can't remember. But I was like, I thought that might be what Clover Press was sending me, and noticed that I was never getting those comics. It's like, they're not coming out ever. Evening, gents. Always ready for some Friday comic talk. Good evening, Scarlet Hottie. Just poured a whiskey on the rocks. We'll take a drink for Joe Matt. He died this week. Even they got pity for sending me my book. The Great Gatsby thing looks very cool. Yes, it's I like the Great Gatsby comic. I'm just a little annoyed that I usually don't do Kickstarters because it's like the most expensive way to buy comics. And I got the Kickstarter for the Great Gatsby hardcover adaptation from Clover Press. And it ended up with shipping costing me $84 for this hardcover. Comes with a slipcase too, this edition. And it's autographed by Ted, I can't remember his last name, who did the adaptation, the writing. All I can think of is Ted Rawl, and he's a cartoonist. But Ted Adams, is that his name? Maybe it's Ted Adams. But it's a $25 hardcover that I paid $84 for. So it's a little annoying. But, que sera, sera.
Well, speaking of Great Gatsby, that is we do have a Great Gatsby exhibit in the next Amadora Comics Festival. So would you like to see the exhibits that we're going to have?
Let's see.
Okay, so let's see.
Because the artist, what's his name? George Coelho?
Jorge Coelho.
Is Portuguese. So he's probably got some art over there.
Mm-hmm. Is it working? It's not working. No, wait.
It will not let you present.
No. Uh-oh.
Present.
I think I'm frozen.
You're frozen.
I'm frozen.
I can hear you on this side, so.
Yeah, but am I moving?
You're moving. But log out and log back in.
I can't. Yeah, probably do. Let's hope I don't have to restart the computer.
Well, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. It's early. Oh, now he might be frozen, or he just stopped moving. I can't tell.
I think he stopped moving.
Anything.
No, now he's jiggling. So I don't know if you noticed on last week's post. I think it was Johnny Green from Marvel left a comment.
Oh, did he? I didn't notice that.
Yeah. I think like Apocalypse is his handle or something. He signed it JG at one point. I was like, hey, if you ever want to come on, let me know. I'll send you a link. He's like, cool. So maybe some night he'll come on and chat with us. Haven't chatted with Johnny in a long time.
I spoke to, because Johnny inks Fred Haynes' work.
Right.
And
no, he did. I don't know. He has in a while.
He does every once in a while, and then usually I end up coloring something. And I've worked with Fred on other projects off and on for years. So chances are, if there was something that was inked, a good chance Johnny inked it. And there were some other projects that we would work on every now and then. So it will pop up that way.
Do you follow Fred's webcomic?
I try to. but it's one of those things like I get the alerts for it. It's like, okay, I'll take a look at it later. And just like collecting comics, I never do. So it's like, so this
it's
week,
good. I read it every week. I enjoy it. It's called it's by Fred Haynes. It's called The Hero of Rockaway, Thor with dots next to
right?
it. So it's The Hero of Rockaway. It appears once a week. You can find it out, just put The Hero of Rockaway and Fred Haynes into your web browser. And he's been doing it for years now, and it's a superhero story. I call it poetry and fighting. Because like the writing is very sort of poetic superhero stuff about the thoughts of these heroes and villains as they kick the crap out of each other. And,
Right.
and it's of course got this gritty undertone. And I really enjoy it. That's pretty good stuff. Fred, he was he never actually worked in the Marvel offices, but he was there all the time looking to pick up freelance work. And his two friends, Johnny and Thomas, worked in the bullpen with us. So Fred would come in, Johnny and Thomas were working there any day. Anyway, Fred would come in all the time and hang out, and he was like a bullpenner. And
Yeah,
he drew some War Machine and other stuff too.
Yeah, he drew War Machine at Marvel, a couple of projects here and there, covers.
Yeah.
And I know him from Marvel. I thought he did work in the bullpen because I know I saw him behind the computers a few times.
He got a job at DC in the bullpen.
That I do know. He was in DC,
but I don't think he ever actually got a regular job at Marvel in the bullpen.
I think he chipped in every once in a while at Marvel.
I don't even know.
I know he was doing some production stuff at Marvel.
Okay.
Or he was hanging out at Marvel and he was sitting behind the computer.
Out so much.
But yeah, and then and I would visit him over at DC because he was working production at DC, and he was there until DC moved, and
right.
he didn't move with them. And over at DC, he drew some issues of Green Lantern.
Okay. Got to get Irving Forbush himself on the channel, LOL. Good evening, Sleepy Reader. Sleepy Reader, let me ask you, do you have any Joe Matt, since he died this week? If you don't, look him up. He late 80s, early 90s, autobiographical cartoonist. And like I said, and reading like this, besides me liking it and it being good, it is very nostalgic for me now too. Because like I said, not only is this he's one of the the five cartoonists who defined the late 80s, early 90s for me. It's also about him being a comic book artist and trying to make a living in the late 80s, early 90s, which me and a lot of other people were trying to do. So it's very nostalgic reading this, as well as me enjoying it for not being nostalgic. Peep Show. The Cartoon Diary of Joe Matt. I wish there was more of it,
Yeah.
I have a bunch of single issues of Peep Show. Comic Crack turned me on to him. Yeah. And it's funny, the single, a lot of people who were Joe Matt fans of this era and loved his crammed artwork, and because he only had one page to work with, were like disappointed when the individual Peep Show issues came out because it was a regular comic then. He wasn't jamming every page with an entire story. There's like 5 or 6 pages of comics in every page he's got. Yep, R.I.P. Joe Matt. He was one of the guys where you really appreciated the art form of taking ink pages, staples, and creating something greater through storytelling. Yeah, he loved comics. He loved making comics, and you could tell. And the reason he made autobiographical comics was he couldn't make up. He couldn't make up stories. He was like, I was trying to make up stories and characters and get so bored and just can't. So he made himself the character. And it's just terrific stuff, but sad to and I read somewhere that he had been complaining about chest pains for a while. But knowing how cheap he is and how he probably didn't have good insurance, he probably didn't want to go to the doctor, which I understand 100%.
Oh yeah, I completely get it. If I wasn't if I wasn't getting my well my health being taken care of by the state basically through this whole rigmarole of stuff like that,
Right.
I just would not have any of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
me
I
too.
don't make enough to get
Right.
anything from any of the companies I got. So it's like basically the state is paying for it through all these different
Taxes.
yeah, and insurances
Joe
and
Matt
stuff
was
like that.
incredibly confessional. He was. He was. Like I said, one of my favorites is just like I said. I actually I think it was he died on Monday. Was it the 19th? And then I was on Tuesday. So I think I heard about it Tuesday morning. So that's the day I commuted into the city. So I immediately pulled this off my shelf and was like, I want to read this on the train as I go in.
Right.
Because I was read on the train. So I'm like, I got to read Peep Show. So that's what I did. I read it up. Didn't even, there is so much in this that I had 2 nearly hour-long train rides, and I got about 2/3 of the way through it. That's how much is packed. That's how much is packed into these cartoons. Like I said, every page is 6 pages.
Right.
I think Paulo's computer blew up. He said he
probably had to
hoped he
do a
didn't
full
restart.
restart. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to kind of do a restart before I got on tonight, but I'm just spending way too much time in Dunkin' waiting for my coffee. It was like, oh, I'll just grab. I got a half an hour before we start. I'll order a coffee, through the app and go pick it up. So it was like 5:28 or something. It's like, oh, I got more than enough time. Usually by the time I ordered on the app, I go down the street. It's ready. Go in and come out. Nope. Just standing there, just kind of like just waiting. It's like, is there one person working here? And look, I understand being working in any kind of uh, coffee shop type thing. I mean, I worked in a toy store, so I know what it is to be by yourself and a crowd of people come in. But at the same time, it's like it wasn't that crowded when I got there. It's like, okay, and then I think what irks me more is that I can see the receipt sitting there, and like so no one's even looked at it. It's like, oh, come on.
The Canadian spy agency blew Cal's computer up. Is that what happened?
Someone's cleaning up shop, taking care of all the loose ends.
A spy agency. Let's see, what else did I get this week? Oh, I got issue 16 of Nocterra. And it turns out this was the last issue. I didn't even know that.
Oh, okay.
So they wrapped up the story in this issue. They wrapped it up pretty well, as a matter of fact. This is Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel with Marcelo Melo. He's the colorist, and World Design is the letters. But wrapped up this sort of sci-fi post-apocalyptic story. And I think it was wrapped up pretty well, but there was one part of this that I kind of ignored that I got like tired. There's because the story is that one day the sun went black. There was still life on Earth, so obviously there was still, I don't know, whatever coming through, but everything went dark. And if you were in the dark too long, you eventually got turned into the monster. So that was you got turned into a monster. So people had to like live within light, and the monsters would attack you too. So that was the basic story, and then they added more to it and this and that. But the two main characters are this sort of teenage kid. He's maybe, I don't know, 16, and he's a science kid, and his older sister who's maybe, I don't know, 20 or 19 and trying to look out for him. But like for the last few issues, there's been a narration by this kid, and it's narrating his stages of truth in science, which are just like I just found it so dumb.
Okay.
I just found his observations about truth and science from this 15-year-old kid just weren't very interesting. So in this issue, and I think I did it in the last issue too, I just skipped his narration part, and which was easy to do because his narration about his view on science and discovering things was really sort of a metaphor for what was going on. That's the right word I'm looking for. It was kind of another level of what it was going on. But it's like, I didn't need that stupid other level. It was one of those things where, it's not that deep. And this kid inventing his own scientific method, which really doesn't work. I mean, it's not real science. It's his pretend science that I don't know what it was. So that kind of annoyed me about it. But I ended up liking the ending to it. I thought it ended pretty well. They put the lights back on. I'm sure they could write more Nocterra stories if they wanted to. Oh, so here's the back editorial piece, which I never read.
Right.
I just noticed it said, so is the series over? Absolutely not. We have a lot more stories to tell. Nox is still out there regrouping. Remember, there are thousands of... I figure they could continue it more if they wanted to. But I don't know if they're going to or not. But this series was a solid B to me. Nocterra, from beginning to end, a solid B.
I didn't get to the comic book shop this week, so I'm
No?
3 weeks behind. But I've been kind of reading comics.
Yeah.
And by kind of meaning that I've been reading online from the Marvel website itself. I've been reading Spider-Man comics. Kind of
Marvel
basically
Unlimited?
the Unlimited website. And I've been reading the run that is, I guess, let's see, because Amazing Spider-Man had a couple of different revamps.
Yeah.
So let me just open up one of the books. So this was published back in 2018. So it's under Amazing Spider-Man. I think this is probably volume 2 or 3. And it is written by Nick Spencer. And it's penciled by Ryan Otley or Humberto Ramos. So it looks like they popped that, a few issues would be Otley and a few issues.
So that's fairly recent. I think Otley only took over after Invincible ended. So
right.
Hey, there's what's his name? Paulo.
Agent 00.
I almost called him Wilson. I'm like, no, I'm talking to Wilson.
Maxwell Smart.
Nah.
Welcome back, Agent Ott. Or is it 00?
The Canadian spy agency tried, but they were Canadians.
They were too nice about it. They called you first and said, "We're sorry, we're going to attempt this."
Okay, let me see if I can do it now. Let's see if I don't have to restart my computer again.
Oh, that's right. He was sharing something with us.
Mm-hmm.
I have a vague memory of that. Seems so long ago.
Something about Gatsby.
Here we go.
Okay, so let's see the exhibits that we have. This is where it's always better in Europe. We have
Expo Sickos.
Exposições. All right, so these are all of them, and here they are. So there's an exhibit about, well, the one on the right you don't know. It's a Portuguese author. With the Many Deaths of Layla Starr.
Ram V, I see his name there.
Yeah, and Filipe Andrade. There's a new book by a well-known Portuguese author, Bernardo Maia. The graphic novel is called These Days.
These days.
Yeah, this is too out there.
Huh.
So is this. Okay, the Italian comic, Western comic text is now on its 75th anniversary, and 800 monthly issues later, it's still the same
Jared
thing.
would enjoy major stuff.
Yeah, the text doesn't change. It's been the same since 1952, and yet it's still going.
It's a Western. It's a Western. It's a Western.
Yes.
No need to be anything else.
Wait. Okay. Doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. All right. Here's the rest. So the one on the left is a cartoonist called Dario Duarte. And the one on the right, this is the most famous Brazilian comic ever, Monica, 60th birthday. Mauricio, her creator, Mauricio de Souza, was good friends with Osamu Tezuka.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And here it is. We have The Great Gatsby with art by Jorge Coelho. We're going to... And also an exhibit dedicated to Agatha Christie's comic adaptations.
Oh. I have never seen an Agatha Christie comic adaptation.
Yeah, they're being made in France right now, and a Portuguese publisher is running them. So we have about 4 Poirots now, and a couple of Miss Marples.
Mm-hmm.
This day's Bernard Ryan, 85th anniversary of Superman. I bet we'll have a lot of modern art instead of the art that we actually want to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there's text. There's an exhibit about billboards. I don't know why.
Some people find those interesting.
Yeah.
The cowboy stuff, they've been going on for so long. Do they just stay cowboy? Does it get weird? Do they occasionally toss like an odd space story or something like that? I used to notice that
no.
with some certain long-running series, mostly with like soap operas. After a while, they just like, well, let's try this. I'm curious if they ever did that with the cowboy stuff.
Not that weird. If it's a ghost story, they'll try to pass it off. Who is the ghost real? Maybe it is. The one with weird stuff. There's another cowboy comic made in Italy. That one has weird stuff. It's called Zagor. And the other exhibits: 45th anniversary of Garfield.
Garfield.
Yeah, I wish they did. I wish they did an art exhibit on Garfield minus Garfield.
Yeah. I enjoyed that strip.
And the one on the right is one of Miguel Ancho Prado's graphic novels, and Prado is one of my favorite Spanish authors, so he's going to have an exhibit as well.
Cool. Enrique Gabriel.
Oh yeah, he died last month.
Ah.
And that is it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what Sleepy has to say here. I never think where artists who disappear from visibility go. Yeah, I saw David Chelsea at a zine fest in August. Realized I hadn't seen his work since the 90s. Speaking of a confessional cartoonist. Yeah, I haven't either. I still have David Chelsea in Love on my shelf, which I think was 4 magazine-sized issues. And that's pretty much the only thing I've seen for him. And they came out in the 90s. So it has been a while. It was like, we're just saying Joe Matt wasn't that prolific either. I think his last Peep Show comic came out in like 2007, I read. It has been a while. Darn CSIS strikes again. Jared, have you ever seen Images Proxima Centauri, Middle West, or Die? I saw ads from them in the back of old books, but I haven't tracked them down. I read some issues of Die. The Middle West, I think, was that a think that was a Scotty Young written book, but I never checked that one out. And Proxima Centauri, I don't think I ever checked out either. But Die I read maybe the first trade of, and it was okay, but then I just never kept track of it. I think I read those digitally. I took them out of the library or something digitally. Yes, maybe I would enjoy major stuff.
Yeah,
like Jonah Hex going into the future. That's the way. Yeah. Well, that was a whole direction change.
Yeah. No, there was. Now there was a pre-2000 AD comic. It was about a Roman centurion who was African, and all of a sudden they decided, let's turn this into a space gladiators comic. The guy's in the middle of a battle in ancient Rome, and he gets abducted by aliens, and the comic continues, but it's all set in outer space.
Aliens can abduct you at any time. That's the lesson of that comic.
That's right. And sometimes you'll get a Iron Man-like costume from them, and you start, your own little, what was it, Valiant universe? Man of War, was that Valiant?
Sleepy says Middle West, written by Scotty Young, is very good. I may have read an issue of that. Now that you mention it, was that the one that was sort of like a gangster story kind of? It was like about a crime family in the Middle West or something. I can't remember if that it was or not. Oh well, like I said, I actually, it was that can't remember the name of it now. So I know Sleepy read it too. That Scotty Young written one about the woman who was an artist living in an old house. It was like a 5-issue series. That made me like Scotty Young's writing, so I would check something out by him. Mm-hmm. Did you guys didn't make it to the comic shop for Batman Day to get your free Batman comic?
No, I didn't know there was a free Batman comic. I celebrated Batman Day by, posting up a Batman image that I colored at some point. And that's pretty much as far as I go when I celebrate Batman Day.
Yeah, there's a reprint of the new Mark Silvestri drawn stuff, which I think is just this year or last year it came out. Let's see, I don't even know who the writer is on it. Let me see. Does it Mark Silvestri, Arif Prianto? Did Silvestri write it himself? Oh, it's credits. Where are the written and illustrated by Mark Silvestri? This is the only, I was reading a little of this, the only one I didn't read before the show. And I was reading a little of it as I was sitting here waiting for you guys. And it was okay. It was tough guy, Batman, okay. The new digital collectible card game where the world's finest team up and face off. You want to collect digital cards. I know it, Wilson.
I actually already do. I have, okay, this will sound like an ad, but it's not. I have the Topps app because I did work for Topps at one point doing sketch cards. And at one of the conventions, they had advertised Star Wars cards. And so I collect the Star Wars, the Disney, and the Marvel cards that they put out on the app. I don't buy any. You can do little, because they make a game out of it. So you can collect coins, and you can do stuff with the cards where you can earn more cards. So I do the free stuff, and it's fun. Something to kill a few minutes while I'm waiting for a file to download or upload. You can easily purchase cards, purchase things where it's like you could easily spend money on it because they make it so simple to do that.
Right.
And I did buy a few at the beginning because, like, okay, this is fun. And then I realized
just to see what it's like.
And just to see what it was like. So I have a bunch of cards. I have a couple of sets. It's fun. They're all on the phone, so you don't have anything physical.
Is it Dual Force or another one?
No. It's just called Tops. Let's
Okay.
see if I can pull up what the app looks like. It is just Tops makes 3 of them, so you could use your login for all 3 of them.
Right.
And so here's what the Star Wars one looks like while
Okay.
it's opening. There's some animation to it. The cards themselves are well designed. Every few sets still change the designs on them.
Right. Right.
Some of them, some special cards will have some movement, sound, and what have you. The Disney ones are a lot of fun because with the Disney ones, when they do special ones, they pull out from all the vaults. So there's
Right.
even like old Donald Duck comic strip stuff, which is the
Right.
stuff that I enjoyed looking at. So once in a while, they'll one card would actually open up to the whole strip, so you can read the story. So I find that a lot of fun, and it's cool to see the artwork and what have you. And then you could trade them with friends. You can or trade them with strangers because of the way the app is made. So even if you miss out on a card, you might have an extra card that someone else wants. So you get really doing something that I was never able to do as a kid. I like the idea
Ah.
of trading cards and trading
Right.
comics, but I never knew anyone who did that.
Right.
So I never got to do that. So there's a nostalgia for something I knew about as a kid, but I never got to do.
Right.
So it's fun to do it on the game. I quickly, I spent a couple of bucks and then decided at the end I don't have a physical item. At any point, these things are on somebody's server somewhere.
Right.
And if they ever wanted to take them down, they take them down. So it's
Yeah.
like I decided
It's
early not to pay into it, so I
right.
just get the stuff for free.
And that means it's not NFT card collectors, because if it was NFT card collectors, they couldn't just delete. If the game goes away, you got nothing. If
Right,
it was actually NFT, you'd still have your cards. So
right.
it's
You'll
not
have them
actually NFT card.
somewhere. You'll have that.
Yeah,
You'll have that
it's
JPEG
not
somewhere.
that sophisticated.
No, not at all.
There was a
But it
kid in
is
a
a lot of fun.
magical Midwest who runs away with a carnival. Okay, that's what Middle West was. I'm confusing it with something else, but that's the description of Scotty Young's and somebody else's Middle West. I don't know who the artist was on it, but it wasn't Scotty Young. Here's a weird book I got this week. I say weird because it's really dark. Another Archie's Madam Satan, Hell on Earth. Chilling Adventures presents. And I say stuff because this is a real horror book. It's not even like an Archie horror book where there's, I mean, the artwork is by, who does the artwork? Line art by Vincenzo Federici, coloring by Ellie Wright, lettering by Jack Morelli. And it's kind of real horror artwork and real horror stuff happens. Satan takes over Earth and Madam Satan becomes powerless and they have to, and I'm like, I mean, this is a real horror book. But the funny thing about it is it's a one shot, but it's to be continued. I'm like,
I
what?
wonder if it's going to go over to it's like more. The story will continue in the other Archie horror type stuff, like Sabrina.
She's on, yeah, it probably will, I would guess, but I've never had one that's just a straight up says to be continued at the end. And I'm like, because Jinx is in this too, so it could switch over to a Jinx one shot.
Right. I would suspect
But
so.
there's usually nice covers that go along with this, and I like this one. The second cover was pretty nice too, but I'm not buying 2 covers. Who does this one? Does it tell us? Let's see, does it say in the back? Cover A? I don't know. Main cover by, this is Vincenzo Federici. So the interior artist does the cover too on this one, but nice. And these are usually short too, in that I think they're 20 pages. and then, or at least short for me, like most of the stuff I read is more than 20 pages, even though, that's a standard Marvel or DC comic. And I guess Archie comics. And then there's some more stuff in the background I didn't read about, behind the scenes look at the stuff, main cover concepts, some thumbnail sketches, some pencils. Chilling Adventures presents Welcome to Riverdale. I think I pre-ordered that one. Fear the Funhouse, Toy Box of Terror. That one might be on final order cutoff this week. And there's also now a collected edition of all the Archie horror stuff. If anybody out there, I've been enjoying this Archie horror stuff. I pick up the one shots when they come, one every month or two usually. I guess there's a bunch. There's at least 2 of them in October. But I've really they've been doing a good job with that Archie horror stuff.
They do quite well, I think, with them because they keep popping up, and they're working well with them. They could just never seem to get the superhero stuff going.
Yeah.
But the horror stuff, and then the when they go outside the norm for Archie, Archie versus Predator and all those other stuff, they've been doing pretty well with that. So it's interesting that they only have a core group that they always use and go back to, but at the same time they switch them up a bit. So I find that quite interesting to be able to do that with the books.
They also used to never want to be anything but a family comic company. So it's funny to see him dip their toe in, with Madam Satan. That's whoa, Archie's putting out a Madam Satan comic? And George Corona drew Middle West. Okay. I don't remember him, but what's your studio assistant quality control helper cat's name, Wilson? I've been thinking about getting a studio feline.
The cat that you hear in the background, his name is Tanner. So, and then I have another one named Boudica, which is really my brother's cat. That's the one that's over here right now. And Tanner is really my sister's cat, but she moved out and left the cat. But they're both my cats basically. But they do great as studio assistants. They look at me and judge me when I should be working, and they completely don't do anything for the comic book stuff.
Who was Tanner named after? Bad News Bears character? Or?
Tanner came with the name Tanner.
Okay.
Where my first cat, the orange one, Ulysses, we named him. It was just, finding the name. And then Boudica, her original name, I think, was Swan, but my brother changed it to Boudica. So,
okay.
Some cats come with names already. And Tanner, we just left it as Tanner.
I like that Tanner. Mr. Tanner was a singer in the town in the Midwest. And of all the... There's a cleaner from the town in the Midwest. And all the cleaning shops in town, he made his the best. A Harry Chapin song. It pops into my head. Roscoe Tanner, the tennis player. Could be.
When my sister got a new cat, she named him Eros for Italian singer Eros Ramazzotti. But my dad who actually takes care of the cat, he just calls him Little Joe. and whenever I go there, I just call him Cat.
Somebody get that cat out of here.
Yeah, he doesn't really care. He's not rambunctious, but he's also not cuddly. And my mom wanted him to be cuddly.
Studio cat. My paws have a hard time cutting the zipatone. I'm not doing this anymore, asshole. Quit.
No, the closest come to doing anything with comics is occasionally when I'm moving comic boxes, they'll jump into the spot that the comic box was at. Because this is a new area to look at. And that's about it. Every now and then I'll show them a comic to get their approval. So far, they haven't liked anything. So don't know what they enjoy.
Speaking of having a hard time cutting, this is the new fabric paint I got. This is the cheapo fabric paint. And I went to open it And I was like, oh, it's solid on the top. I thought that like it had been sitting around for so long, like the top filmed over or something. So I tried to skim the top of the paint off, and it wasn't coming off. So I got my X-Acto knife and I tried, pressing through the paint. I'm like, oh my goodness, this paint really got rock solid on top, which happens sometimes. But no, it turned out there was a plastic plug on top of this paint. Except usually if there's a seal, it goes straight across the top. This was a plastic plug that went down into it. So it was like, yeah, I couldn't. The top lip looked just like the top lip of the paint, and then there was like a 1/4 inch of air and a piece of plastic down the bottom. So I'm like, and I didn't know that, so I'm trying to like cut through it at first. I'm like, Finally, I cut through it and pulled it out, and I'm like, oh, this is a plug. There was no reason to cut through it. But trying new paints that they came up with a new trick.
Right.
Because this is what I'm used to. These paints just have a seal on. They just have like a piece of foil on top that you peel
usually
off.
like a foil or a cardboard, that weird cardboard thing that can peel up.
Mm-hmm. Right. This plug was new to me. Two cats against one human. Make sure they don't unionize. The cats have us. Bum, bum, bum. And I got a free book this week.
Oh, where from?
My comic shop, because he's like, you want this? It came in damaged. It's the last Cerebus book. Possibly the most unreadable of the Cerebus books. I have all the original issues this was in. It's volume 16. I think it was a new printing from a year or two ago. And I think this is the one. Actually, this one might be more readable than the one before it, because this is the one where Dave Sim always promised that Cerebus would die old, alone, and unloved, and that's what happens. And I think he spent the last volume writing scripture. He was inventing his own religion and writing scripture. Oh, and here's some of the scripture at the beginning, I believe. Yeah, you don't want to read this. But then I think we've got this is the stuff that you don't want to read. It's Dave Sim writing scripture for Cerebus. Here, let me see if I can give you an example of it. 19. And when God doth will, let one man's spirit-bearing seeds, which have come forth of his folly and his nakedness and his spirit in the midst of him. 20. He joined with great haste and great violence into the innermost place within the light, and the word, which is the man's female, as it was from the beginning with all spirits. I don't know. It's some pretty good scriptural sounding stuff, but I don't know why anyone would want to read it. And then we just get page after page of old Cerebus alone, mucking about through the day, putting his here's let's see, 1, 2. Oh, hold on. This is like a whole issue of Cerebus trying to get dressed. But he's so old, he's having a hard time. And he's thinking about, of course, his younger days and what went on, and people are plotting in his head, and he's still hung up on Jaka. There's Jaka. So it's not a good death for Cerebus. Oh, and look, I just flipped to the end, and he's going up to heaven. And there are some people to meet him in heaven. One of them's Jaka, I think. Is one of them Dave Sim? I'm not sure. But I don't think I've looked at this since it first came out. What year was that? 2004? Wow, I haven't looked at this in 19 years. That's kind of nutty. Like I said, the original issues are still up on my shelf. And it's like by the end, it's like the letters page was the best thing about it. People arguing about stuff on the letters page.
I like that he printed the letters pages in that as well. It just
they came in
again,
their own volume.
did they?
Yeah, they came in their
Oh,
own
wow.
volume. There's a volume of Dave Sim letters. It's kind of nutty. Let's see. I started reading Cerebus in that run. I brought them on evacuation to read. Co-workers thought I was a crazy person when they saw what I had in my text reading pile. Yeah, that's some crazy stuff, that last few volumes of Cerebus. Have you guys read much Cerebus at all? Have you ever read any?
I know I picked up issues once in a while, and but not enough to say that I was an avid reader. And it would have been the early stuff, probably in the 80s.
Okay.
Mainly, like, because when he appeared in Spawn, I knew who he was.
Right.
So to me, it wasn't like it was a just a weird character out of nowhere. So I knew of him. I'm almost sure I picked up some of his early stuff, especially like when he had that Wolver Roach character,
Right.
Wolverine kind of knockoff character.
Parody of Wolverine.
Mainly because they were really good covers, or
yeah,
at least they looked like, oh, was Wolverine in that issue, kind of a thing. And I'm pretty sure I probably picked up one or two of them back then. I don't remember any of the stories. I just remember the art, and I remember. I'm almost sure I probably have like the first trade paperback where he's running around with that really Conan the Barbarian look.
Right.
That he had.
He started out kind of as a Conan parody.
Yeah. So I read it because, again, Ninja Turtles are going on, that type of stuff.
Right.
So I saw that as, oh, another Animal black and white book kind of a thing.
Oh, give it a try. Wolverine.
Yeah. I'll give it a try. And I was like, okay. And then I don't recall anything else from it. So it was like when he appeared in Spawn, like, oh, I know who that is. And then that was it. And then I know when I was working at Marvel, and going to Hanley's Comics, the Jim Hanley's Comics, I know I saw the trade paperbacks all over the place, and I might have picked up an issue or two back then while I was at Marvel, and it just like didn't hold me.
Right. Wolverine, Church and State was his favorite. Yeah, a lot of people like Church and
I think I picked up those issues.
Yeah, a lot of people say Church and State 1 and 2 is where it really got good. Well, Church and State 1 and then 2. And Jocka's story, I know, is Tim's favorite. So.
Yeah, I'm almost sure I picked up some Church and State.
By the way, this says The Last Day on it, in case you can't read it, because it kind of looks like old Hebrew script. I think that was the idea.
It kind of reminds me. Yeah, it reminds me of the logo that they have for a contract with God, the Will Eisner one. Because I think the logo for God is in that very similar script.
So Dave Sim, like all through the 90s, won like Eisners for his lettering. Never for the comic itself, but always for the lettering in the comic. That was the one award that the industry would give him.
Well,
I don't recall his lettering.
His lettering was good. He was very creative with it.
Mm-hmm.
He always had lots of balloons and effects in his lettering, and part of his writing was the lettering. And if you ever get a chance to look through some Cerebus from the 90s, take a look at that lettering. He was really expressive with it.
I have to look for it then.
Yawn, I'm a little sleepy tonight.
That's why I had gotten coffee before the show started.
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. I've just been sleepy.
It's midnight over here. What's your excuse?
I think I was up too early in the morning. That's my excuse. I woke up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and couldn't quite get back to sleep.
Okay.
And then had to work all day. I couldn't take a nap. I was telling Paulo before he come out, I was doing a lot of bad idea stuff today because they're getting ready for New York Comic Con, and they've been getting creative with some of their things too. Like what was I getting at tonight? There, as one of the add-ons to one of the books that they kickstarted, they're printing up one foil cover. They've got like it's a what is it called? Hero. All of a sudden, I can't remember the names of the books. It's like the Joe Quesada edition that has a Joe Quesada cover on Hero Trade. That's it. David Lapham and I think Matt Kint do the book. But they have one. It's like a 12-page version that I think they kickstarted. And part of the Kickstarter was they're printing up a foil variant of the cover, tearing it up, and everybody gets a little piece of the foil variant cover. Little piece of foil. So I was putting together the actual cover that's going to get printed and torn up. I told you
that's one way to go.
They made like a 1.5 inch tall comic too, a 1.5 inch tall variant of a comic that they kickstarted too. That you win a tiny version of the comic. So they're coming up with some creative stuff with their Kickstarters.
I still think that if they don't have at least 48 pages of story and a hardcover, it's not worth the price.
Yeah, I can understand that. Bad Idea is almost like a conceptual. Yeah, at this point they are. They're doing a lot of conceptual performance art at cons and things. They've got one comic coming through the shops recently. Their Inebrio Horse Feathers comic. I think that one will be coming through the shops. Slab the little piece. Yeah, right. A tiny little 1 by 1.5 inch slab. That would be interesting.
Well, I've seen. I don't know if CGC does it, but I've seen slab the mini Marvel comics that used to come in you going through the gumball machine.
Yes. It's that Bad Idea comic for Ents. It's got to be at least 3 times this size. Little Zoolander reference for you people out there who are too old or young to get Zoolander references. So they slabbed those gumball comics. Marvel printed a large version of those recently.
I think
sometime
so.
in the last year or two.
I think that might have been done by the company that's been printing their stuff. Tosh or something like that. I think they were. I don't
Tashin?
I think Tashin printed them. I don't think Marvel themselves printed them because it's too fun of an idea.
They're like a German art book company, I think.
I think so. Yeah, there's other companies like anything that's being printed with Marvel characters that's fun is not coming out of Marvel.
Not coming out of Marvel. Let's see, what else did I get? Another Hell book. In Hell We Fight, with the logo being chased right off the top.
I like the logo. It has a nice old-fashioned comic book.
It's got some terrific art in it too. Let me show you. Who's the artist? The artist is Jock, J-O-K. There's the cover. There's the logo. But like the opening splash page is a picture of heaven. It's really nicely done. It's like a Dr. Seuss version of heaven. And then there's stuff like, where is it? them running for their lives from giant monsters double-page spread. We've got a dragon double-page spread. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah, the artwork. I'm glad I put this one on my pull list because it was one of those things where there's a nice panel, right, nice half splash. It was one of those things where I kind of liked it at the first issue. I gave it a second issue, and I still kind of liked it. And I was on the fence. And I'm like, well, I like the art and storytelling, so I'll put it on my pull list. And I've really ended up these, issues 3 and 4. I've really enjoyed the artwork and the storytelling, and it's fun. And it's one of the 3 Hell books I got. This and Spawn and one other in there. When I come to it, I'll have to figure it out. But yeah, In Hell We Fight has been good stuff. And it's kind of like, this is the fun hell in terms of it's still hell. People are being tortured, but not our lead characters. Our lead characters are just on the run. They're on the run with demons chasing them and some of their fathers chasing them and all sorts of fun stuff.
Are these characters like alive and got into hell, or
no,
they were sent to hell and...
One is an angel who wandered too close to the border of heaven and hell, so she got captured. Okay. Another is a kid who hates frogs and ended up killing every frog he saw until a frog demon killed him. And now he's in hell being chased by frog demons all the time. His hell is frogs are always killing him. So he's on the run from frogs and frog demons. The other one is a kid who didn't deserve to go to hell, but he got killed with a cursed axe. So he got sent. So he's constantly got an axe in his head, but you can pull that axe out. And another axe appears in his head, but you still have that other. So it's like you have an endless supply of axes by pulling them out of his head.
Okay.
Then the third guy I think it's the frog guy who his torture is he vomits things up. So he vomits really easily if you say disgusting things, and he vomits things, and he vomits old shoes and beer cans, but occasionally vomits something useful. So and then that big dragon, one of the characters is his daughter. And it was we just found out this issue, that big dragon is the one who arranged the kidnapping of the angel, and now he's pissed off that his daughter stole the angel from him. So he wants to go and kill the daughter. And the reason they were running from giant monsters is because another demon was like, kill him. I'm mad at him. Kill him. So they're always on the run. And then I think the last character is is hot stuff. He's like a little kid demon. But the leader, the girl who's the dragon's daughter, doesn't want him around because demons can't be trusted. And his father's like some major demon in hell. And you don't want to get on that guy's radar. So it's been an interesting 4 issues.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm all for books that are a lot of fun. I hope Bad Idea keeps going just because I think of them as a sponsor of this show. Yeah. Well, if they keep coming up with that one Kickstarter of theirs did really well. The giant hardcover book Kickstarter, which raised like $350,000. So
oh wow,
they can keep going if they raise that much money. So that's cool.
That's pretty neat.
And I've seen I don't know how much money it's raised, but I see the ads in my feed on Facebook though for this. They're reinventing the digital comic by giving them, you're going to get the comic at like full resolution, no downsampling. Because usually when you get digital comics, they're made for the screen resolution. You're going to get PDFs that you can actually print the comic from if you wanted to. Because they're like full 450 DPI. And then they're also adding in the script. So with the digital comic, you get the comic itself all the way to the bleed too. That was their other thing. Usually, for those of who don't know, there's bleed on a comic. So when you print any book, if you want the image to go all the way to the edge, you have to put an extra eighth an inch all around. So all of the art you see in a comic that bleeds, there's an extra eighth of an inch that gets cut off because they need that so there's not a white line at the edge of your comic. So we're setting up these comics so that the digital comic will go all the way to the bleed. So you'll get to see that extra eighth inch of art all around the comic that you normally don't get to see. And as I said, then they're putting in the script. They're putting in the pencils if someone's got copies of them. They're putting in the inks or the colors without lettering over it. They're putting in any designs or alternate pages they have for it. So it's jam-packed full of stuff. I know I've been putting them together for the last few weeks. It's like each digital comic is like, 200 pages long. So they're pretty big. And I think that's all going through Kickstarter.
That makes sense. Okay,
the guy who did.
Sorry, it's like, to me, it's like, okay, so it's kind of bringing back, or it harkens to the days of like getting the extras in DVDs.
Yeah. If you like to see how a comic is made in the guts of a comic, this is for you. That sounds cool. Who is creating the digital comic? I am. I mean, I'm the one putting it together. They just are like my editor, Peter Stern, is gathering together all the pieces for me because otherwise because I don't even have all the pieces. He's giving them to me and I'm putting them all together in an InDesign document. That's how you put comics together with InDesign. That's the publishing program. So I'm putting them all together in InDesign. And of course, then they go back through the editorial process and they say, change this, change that, do this, move this around, change this, change that, sort of thing. And then at the end, I'll output the digital comic for them. What is that? I guess. Who's the creative team? They're doing it for a whole bunch of them. So I think there's 6 of them. So there's at least 6 creative teams. There's a lot of Lapham stuff, some Matt Kint stuff, some, what is that other one? I don't even know who the creative, because like I said, there's 6 different comics that I think come in the bundle. Look it up on Kickstarter. Look up Bad Idea Digital Comics on Kickstarter. You'll see it, because I think it's still running right now. Some good art, too. They always have good art in those comics, I got to say. But yeah, we're putting together. Which ones are they doing? They're, like I said, the Hero Trade, the werewolf one we're doing. That was the one I was putting together today. They put out a werewolf book. That was nice. A couple months ago. Let's see. Werewolf Pro Edition. That's the only one that's in my inbox right now. I got all the other stuff out of my inbox today. I like to keep a clean inbox. Though I archive everything. I never delete anything. It's all archived. I've got emails going back 20 years. Or further.
I've got the same thing. Anything digital that comes in. And then from Marvel, learning to keep 3 copies of everything. So just to make sure, because every now and then you have to look for something and it's not where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You can at least find it.
And what I do too is everybody who sends me an email, I make a message box in your name, and after I'm done with the email, it gets moved over to that message box. That way it's out of my inbox and archived in the message box.
I stopped saving emails that are older than 5 years, 6 years ago.
Not me. I just keep adding more hard drives. Email is like easy. I got so many hard drives and so much art on them. I'm like, emails, that's nothing. That's nothing.
That'll be next year's Kickstarter, is all your emails that you had with a bad idea.
You want to see the 19 different versions that this guy went through? Here's 19 PDFs where you can see we fixed the periods and the comma. See if you can spot the difference.
Dear reader, can you figure out where the missing commas went? Bet editor.
Let's see. I also got the latest issue of Saga today.
Oh no.
Oh no, Saga's good.
No.
This issue.
How does the woman in Family Guy go? Oh yeah. No.
This issue was all of, and this issue we got some tertiary characters for the whole issue. They gave us the story of this guy right here, who met Alana, the main character, like years ago once, and she turned him down for a date, and he became some kind of hitman. And this is the story of him running into a couple other tertiary characters. And what happens? I like Saga. I just think I expect nothing of it. I expect it to just be a long, rambling story that goes on for years without a point, and I'm never disappointed, because that's exactly what it is. It's a long, rambling story that goes on for years without any point to it. I'm okay with that. That's what they told us it was going to be in the beginning. That's what the name is. I'm good with it. I enjoy it all the time.
That has given me an idea.
Rare production emails, yeah.
They should make a Seinfeld comic, but without Seinfeld, only with the tertiary characters. So we'd get comics starring Babu, Soup Nazi, and Jay Peterman.
We can see the comics starring the Bizarro Jerry, the Bizarro George, and the Bizarro Kramer. Jared says, give me pointless comics. I'm okay with pointless comics as long as we all know they're pointless comics. Like someone on Facebook, Ed Laz, was discussing hold on. You're a genius, Paulo. By the way, I always there was an observation on the Howard Stern show that I always liked back in the 90s. I forget who came up with it, but they were like, you know what? Unless your name is Einstein, the word genius is always an insult. We don't use it except as an insult, unless your name is Einstein, unless you're an actual bona fide genius. That word is always an insult. I was like, you know what? They're right.
My brain is getting fired up on this Seinfeld tertiary character idea. I just had a different one. Inspired by Moon Knight's multiple personalities. A day in the life of Art Vandelay, architect.
A fictional tertiary character. He can hang out with Regina Phalange from Friends. That was Phoebe's fictional identity. But what just came into my mind? They could give us a day in the life of the umbrella twirlers. Like all that whole network of umbrella sellers. What a day in their life like? Endless. There's 8 million stories in a naked city. This is one about umbrella twirlers.
We can go back to what was that movie? The movie with.
He was not insulting Paulo, but perhaps being hyperbolic.
Hey, it's not every day that somebody gets an idea to do a comic about Seinfeld tertiary characters. Nobody said it had to be a good idea. Yeah, but
Hyperbolic.
You'd think that adapting a sitcom into a comic would be easy.
No, only because comedy in comics is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. As all the unfunny comics we've ever read will let you. We read Calvin and Hobbes and think it's easy. It's not. Just because Dave Waterson makes it look easy, or Mad Magazine made it look easy, it's not.
And
Yeah.
even harder is the less amount of panels you have makes it even harder. Like The Far Side, to be funny in one panel, it's incredibly hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I can't remember who said it. I heard it years ago on YouTube. He was talking about some comic, and he was saying, I think we discussed this before. It's very hard to have charm in a drawing. So a lot of times, comedy depends on how charming the lead actor is, how he delivers the lines, how much you like him so you laugh. It's hard to be charming with a drawing. Of course, the best comedic cartoonists can do it, but your average can't. Like your average superhero guy has no shot of doing a sitcom with Seinfeld characters. Terry Moore would have a shot. The rest of us, no. I'm trying to remember sitcom comics. All I can remember is Welcome Back, Kotter. Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. Mark Evanier, I think, wrote some of that. I think he wrote for Kotter, too. Yeah, I don't know if there have been many sitcom comics.
Right. So there's never been not. Yeah, Leave It to Beaver never had a comic, and that one was a TV show back when Dell published everything that was on TV.
Huh.
You sure there wasn't a Leave It to Beaver comic?
No, I'm not. But I don't remember one.
Because I'm not 100% because Dell did print everything, and
right.
it was.
I can picture one, but it just might be my imagination.
Yeah, because it was like even like Lost in Space had a comic, but it didn't connect to the TV show.
Yeah, no. Marie Severin would have been good for a sitcom comic. Yeah. Alf. That's right. Alf was a comic.
Alf, yeah.
Alf was a comic. Yeah.
That was a sitcom comic.
It was the comic was not very good.
No.
It was a TV show, but so it matched.
Well, I liked Alf because I was 7.
Well, yeah, but again, I find that when back in in the 80s, if there was a cartoon or a TV show and they had a comic book adaptation, it was usually never as good as the TV show. Because the Thundercats had a comic, Star Comics, and they weren't that great. There's just something about cartoon comic books that they try to go too kiddie with it. And I have always found that, because I've read like the Flintstone comics, Laugh Olympics. Some of those books didn't really go anywhere. They were either, written by people who didn't watch the show or made stuff up that, I don't need it to be, fit in continuity, but it just didn't seem to work. Other books did. Like
they treated.
I believe the older Mighty Mouse comics kind of worked, but they were their own thing, kind of created by the studio, if I remember correctly. Terry Toons was working on the comic books and the animation, so I think that was a better connection.
People can treat children as if they're stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids pick up on that in literature. Like if you make comics thinking kids are stupid, the kid's gonna pick up on that because you're making something stupid. But there's one Alf comic that's in demand.
Oh yeah,
only because of the cover.
Yep, the seal.
You know that they did a cartoon show based on Alf, two actually.
Yeah.
And they were better than the live action TV show.
I think I have one Alf comic, and it's an annual that has a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle parody in it.
Huh. That sounds familiar. I mean, I know I have comics. I bought them when they were coming out.
Tit Goblin says, I once lived in a downtown apartment that was decorated as a clone of the Friends apartment, but I had no idea because I never watched and hated Friends. And X had to show me I was living in Friends. Jared, your Friends written run-throughs are the closest I ever come to watching an episode. Yeah, one of the things I do on my blog when I just feel like writing but don't really have a topic to, I do walkthroughs of episodes of Friends, where I just watch an episode of Friends and write about what's going on, and if I find it funny or don't find it funny, or any insight I have to it, or what I was doing at the time. I check my calendar to see what I was working on at the time. So it's a little nostalgia walkthrough of Friends. Like, people do walkthroughs of video games all the time. I'm going to do a walkthrough of a TV show. I've been doing that for a few years now.
Okay, I just had to find out there are Leave It to Beaver comics.
Oh, look at that! That's like what's that old joke? What's the dirtiest line ever said on television? Ward, maybe you were a little hard on the beaver last night. Teen Titans Go comics and Scooby-Doo comics, when written by Shali Fish, are good. Used to read them with my daughter. The good old days.
But it must have been terribly, terribly hard to write Looney Tunes comics, because you're trying to make it a comic for kids when the cartoons never were.
You have to write them with kids in mind, but for adults too. But that's not easy to do, especially since most people can't write to be. Most writers can't write to begin with anyway. So and there's a lot of that, as we know from the amount of comics we've read.
Yeah, we know from watching the cartoons that they're primarily designed for adults, and if you're trying to and doing a comic book adaptation at a time when they were trying to be wholesome, it just doesn't work.
It's tough.
Yeah,
just tough. Having the right writers for it, because they would be like, as I mentioned before, with the Duck stories, the Donald Duck stories and things like that, with Scrooge McDucks, that would eventually become DuckTales. Those early adventures, people enjoyed the heck out of them because you had an action-adventure storyline going on that had a couple of punchlines in it, but it was more about the story itself. So it was being treated as an action-adventure. These characters happened to be ducks. And I think that's where it falls short later on when they do adaptations that, if you read any of or watch any of the interviews, whenever Marvel was trying to get a writer for something else connected to a cartoon, they could never get anyone to want to do it. Larry Hama jokes that the only reason why he was writing G.I. Joe is because nobody else was willing to write it.
Right.
And he just took it and ran with it and did good stories there, where people are now realizing how good those stories were. But for a long time, G.I. Joe was kind of like slapped into the same quarter bins as all the other comic book cartoon adaptations.
And Looney Tunes were pure animation. Still, Pix can't do the same thing, says Sleepy Reader. Yeah. And also, there's something I just thought of, too, about like adaptations of like Looney Tunes and things is you have to, it might not even be the writer's fault that it's not good because they have to get approval from the studio. And I imagine the person you have to get approval from on the studio isn't even a person powerful enough to approve the cartoons themselves. So it's like you don't even get like the big wigs who are in charge of the animation to approve the comic book adaptation. You get some little wigs in there who probably don't get to approve much. So they're really, waving their hand of power over the comic books, probably constraining a lot of the writers.
I have notes.
Yeah, and it also depends on the property as well.
Yeah.
Like, famously, I've heard about, how the various actors on Star Trek needed to approve their likenesses in the comic.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why when we read any of the Star Trek from DC Comics, a lot of the images are just whatever
You're
was
breaking
approved.
up on us, Wilson.
Any of the images that were approved were basically kind of like rubber stamped. So they used the same headshot in the same book.
Where I knew that took place was in the X-Files that Charlie Adler drew from Topps in the 90s because Ed Murr was working there at the time. And he said, and it's like, it was even like the actors had say over their likenesses or not. And they, of course, didn't like any of their likeness because Charlie Adler isn't really a likeness guy. So they just kept pasting that when they get the art in, they'd paste the approved heads over Charlie Adler's drawings. That's why you'll see the same faces appear over and over in those Topps X-Files comics.
And the larger the company, the more people that has to approve it.
Yeah.
I'm now working on a project based on a movie that was over 25 years. The production company sends me the files. I'm just basically packaging it up and sending it back to them. That's their files, and I'm still waiting on approvals. It's like, but these are your images that you already approved for me to use, and all I'm doing is putting it into basically the same shape it already is, just now has a bleed. Why am I waiting for approvals that take weeks?
Who knows where you could have drawn penises in those images? Who knows? We got to keep an eye on you.
Uh-huh.
You comic book guys are shady.
No, I've been looking at some other stuff.
Those stray penises in Captain America came from the printers, not production.
So I've been trying to find more sitcom adaptations. So no Gilligan's Island comic.
No,
but
really?
there was nope. There's a parody here somewhere in a black and white magazine called the Gilligan's Island of Dr. Moreau.
there was a Partridge Family comic, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. There was
Any
a Bewitched
comics?
Let me check. So there's a Bewitched comic.
There's a Bewitched comic.
There's an I Love Lucy comic. There's an I Love Lucy comic strip, which was reprinted in 1990 by Malibu.
Wow.
Yeah. So Brady Bunch. Do we have a Brady Bunch comic?
Was there a Brady Bunch? Is that why for a time all the Star Trek comics only had their movie likenesses from this? Yeah, probably. All those actors would often have likeness rights.
Mm-hmm. And there is Brady Bunch comic as well.
There is a Brady Bunch comic?
Yeah, so Brady Bunch only had 2 issues. Leave It to Beaver had 6. Bewitched at 14 and I Love Lucy at 33.
Who published them?
Dell,
of course.
Yeah,
everything Dell.
See, for me, it's like
everything was
Brady Bunch. I could only imagine what the Brady Bunch comic looked like, but bet the artwork did not look like a Brady Bunch cartoon, which is what I would have opted to do. Is I would have matched that art style, and that would have made at least the cartoon visually look more friendly for kids.
Okay, so Brady Bunch was drawn by Jose Delbo.
Oh wow!
It would have been good.
Good evening, Sketchbot. And I also got this week the last issue of Howard Chaykin's Hey Kids Comics, Volume 3. And I gotta say, this ended pretty cool. Yeah. There's our cast of characters for this issue. But we start off with, I don't know, somebody having a heart attack. I don't remember which thinly veiled guy. And then we get to view Alan Moore getting ripped off by DC Comics, or Yankee Comics as it's known here. What does it say?
What's the Alan Moore stand-in name?
The Alan Moore stand-in name is Daniel Parks.
Okay.
Let's say
I've gone there.
And I like the conversation between the artists here. These are all like young Chaykin age artists. I forget who. It says Yankee just fucked Parks out of the revision rights to Black Guardians, which of course is Watchmen. He says. Then the other guy says Parks is making a shitload in royalties, but he had a clause in his contract to get the characters back. First, they say no to royalties because they'll collapse. Business will collapse. Now they make a bundle on the interest they get from the CDs to buy instead of paying the royalties on time. And then they renege on agreements by treating us like the money-grubbing whores they are. And I was like, you know what? That pretty much that Marvel and DC got a lot of people to believe that it was the creators who were the money-grubbing whores. They really did. Yep. Managed to there are people to this day who think that of Alan Moore.
Yeah.
But then we go through some times in the 80s that were pretty cool. Then we go and one of the evolution of the fan is because this one fan doesn't get his free sketch at the con because the artist, I don't know which artist is leaving. He said, but I've waited so long. It's like, I've been doing free sketches for hours. And he's like, yes, but I've been waiting an hour patiently. He's like, sorry, dude, come back tomorrow. So then that guy, writes on the internet what a crumb that this artist was. And then they have a whole thing here with, what's his name? Gil Kane dying, Ray Clark. And everybody going to his funeral and talking about what a jerk he was.
Wow.
And then we get the hot days of the Image guys stuff at Marvel. We get Tarantula Lad, Cosmos Quartet, Evolution Team, Evoluteens. It's hard to say. Then they, of course, go on to form Image. And then I love this. They're talking, I quit. I'm out of here. Bye-bye. And then DC and Marvel I just assumed you guys made them a better offer. We heard they quit en masse, of course. They didn't come to you? I was surprised as you when they stormed out. But nobody's called anybody at Yankee looking for work. What do we do? How do we respond to this? Easy peasy. We hire their assistants. They have assistants? So there's all the new Marvel books post-Image where they hired their assistants, or at least guys who tried to draw like them. Mm-hmm. Then it ends with
those Mark Pacella issues of X-Force.
Right. A whole bunch of comic shops going out of business in the 90s. The old guy, here they are at Gil Kane's funeral talking some more. There they are at the bar talking about their lives in comics. And finally we get to the last page we get young Howard Chaykin and old Howard Chaykin at his drawing board saying, I'm a comic book man. Oh, there was also a scene in here of Howard Chaykin quitting television writing because he couldn't take and going back to comic books. Oh, and here's this is how much Howard Chaykin doesn't hold your hand. There's a page, like the last 6 pages or so are really the sort of the denouement. Is that what it's called? The end of a play where they're winding things down. And he's actually got a quote in here. Autumn in New York. And that lyric by Vernon Duke in Emigre says it all. And there's Andre Gregory, another emigre, to add another perspective. I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are guards, and they have their pride in this thing that they built, and they've built their own prison. And they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they're both guards and prisoners. And as a result, they no longer having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or even see it as a prison. And this, of course, is a whole allegory for working in comics. You make your own prison. But this whole thing, I believe, is from My Dinner with Andre. And it's all in quotes. But it's like you wouldn't even know it. He doesn't even give you a source for it. I just happen to recognize, because I'm very familiar with that movie, that I'm pretty sure that's from I didn't double check, but I'm pretty sure that's from My Dinner with Andre. And I'm like, Howard Chaykin so doesn't hold your hand. He doesn't even tell you where the quote he's using comes from. I can only imagine people reading this going, huh? Did he write? What's going on? But good. I really enjoyed the very end of this, I have to say.
It is curious of where he ended it, because I was like, okay, if that's the last issue, does he predict the end of comics?
No, he just predicted the end of it. He just predicted himself still being in comics. He can't help it. He's a comic book guy. But he said he made his own prison, comics. The people that bought the Brady Bunch house said it was their worst investment in life ever. They're trying to sell it now. Did anyone you worked with show up in the Chaykin comic? Oh, yeah, I've known people who've... I've known some of the people in comics, but I can't really think of anyone behind the scenes that I've worked, because he was mostly doing all the big names, No, none of the editors I don't think he had any Marvel editors post Shooter.
Because
those
he wouldn't
were all
know
the guys.
He wouldn't know him anyway. Chaykin never worked with.
Yeah, he wouldn't know him. So I don't know if he had anyone. So you're right. He wasn't there. I only met Chaykin a few years ago for the first time at a con.
Maybe Carl Potts or Mark McLaurin, because he had one miniseries published at Epic when it became Heavy Hitters.
Yeah, I don't think they were in here.
Yeah, and it's too small.
Right.
Yeah, what's the point of making fun of Mark McLaurin?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was. Most of this stuff was before my time. No Jack Abel types. I do not think there was a Jack Abel type in this whole thing. I think Jack Abel was too beloved to show up in this. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody would parody Jack Abel. For those who don't know Jack Abel, he was an inker for many years in comics, but he had a stroke sometime in the mid-'80s. And Jim Shooter gave him a job. He created a job for him as a proofreader at Marvel. That's where I knew him. He was still the proofreader at Marvel in the 90s. And then Flo used to be a proofreader too when she came back. But Jack is known from his proofreading days at Marvel. And from before that, he was in Continuity Studio. I think he may have rented a table from Continuity Studios. And he was kind of the old guy at Continuity Studios who had been in comics for 20 years or something in the 70s. and very good conversationalist, very good sense of humor, very nice guy. So everybody would all the young up and coming continuity guys in the 70s loved to go and talk to Jack and bust on Jack, and Jack would bust on them and have a good time. So he's like one of the beloved people from comics in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. As a kid, I was a fan of Abel's ink. I don't know how I know. I mean, I knew his name, but I don't think I ever noticed his inks enough to be a fan of them. Like, and he may not have inked a lot of stuff in like the late 70s, early 80s when I was reading Marvel. He's a few years older than me.
There were a few. I can't remember if he did Luke Cage. I think he did Master of Kung Fu when Gene Day wasn't available, or when Gene Day could do the whole art.
Okay.
Because Gene Day started on Master of Kung Fu, inking Mike Zeck. Then Zeck started doing mostly covers all around the industry. So Day became the regular penciler, and I think Jack Abel inked some of the comics he drew, and they definitely have a different feel, but it was appropriate, I'd say.
Master of Kung Fu is sort of a measuring stick for me, in that I've heard people say, people a couple years older than me, oh, after Paul Gulacy left, Master of Kung Fu was never good anymore. I never read any of it. I'm like, you missed out on the Mike Zeck and Gene Day Master of Kung Fu. You're going to sit here and tell me you know comics and you think the Gene Day and Mike Zeck Master of Kung Fu are bad? Get out of here. So if anybody tells me that Master of Kung Fu, when I've had friends who've told me that before too. Master of Kung Fu was never any good after Gulacy left. I'm just like, get out of here.
That's
not true.
For starters, the fact
like, oh, I never read those issues. I know you didn't ever read those issues, because
because
they were good.
Yeah, because Doug Mensch gets the minute Doug Mensch gets rid of Fu Manchu, and he stays dead for years. Now he can go do loads of other different stuff,
right?
And that's how we got Midnight Carter and the guy with the blades. What was his name?
Razor Fist.
Razor Fist. And Velcro. Those guys those villains were fun. Otherwise, it was just, if you read the first few years, just Fu Manchu, the Sith fan. Fu Manchu, the Sith fan. Oh, let's introduce Paulo Sui. Sith fan. Fu Manchu and Paulo Sui. And more Fu Manchu. Now Fu Manchu's dead. Let's do something else.
Because I generally enjoy the Mike Zeck Master of Kung Fu, but the Gene Day is my favorite. He was so inventive.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he did it. Yeah, people said that it was Gulacy doing the Steranko riff, but Gene Day did not try to do his Steranko riff, but it was equally theatrical in the way he
That's a good word to use for Gene Day. Theatrical. He created stages in which the action took place. A lot of graphic design elements too. Just good. Like I said, if anyone tells me that Master of Kung Fu stunk after Gulacy left, I'm just like, it may have for a little while, but come on. Don't tell me those issues, those Gene Day issues were no good. And they always go, oh, I never read them. I'm like, well, people learn not to say cliched things like that around me, because I'm not shy about calling them out.
Yeah.
I learned that when I was 10 and all those Silver Age guys were telling me the comics I read sucked.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there were guys who said, oh, that guy Wolverine and Storm and Nightcrawler, they're not real X-Men. The real X-Men are Iceman and the Beast.
They're not the real X-Men. I think he worked over Trimpe and Sal Buscema. Okay. He also inked Gulacy on Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a dead zone between Galassi and Zek? Yeah, there was. I mean, it wasn't a small dead zone too. It was quite a few issues before Zek came on. I think, if memory serves, I'd have to actually look it up. Zone of Indifferent Artists, right? Gene Day was the secret weapon. Fantastic work. Like it, he was still one of my favorites. That Master of Kung Fu stuff from, what is it, over issue? He took over around issue 100, maybe just past it. And just some terrific, terrific stuff. Really got into graphic design input, like it's stage design. That's a good description by Paulo there. He really did a lot of stage design even, because he would just sort of, he'd have these double page spreads that were like he would stage everything, and it was all graphic design-y drawn. Just terrific.
Yeah, when Fu Manchu came back and there was a fight scene with the Death Dealer, and it looks like he's in a. Do you remember the Prince of Persia computer game?
Yeah.
It looks like they're in the entire game, but it's designed like a theater stage.
Yeah.
So those pages I remember quite well, and and I thought that was the best I'd ever seen of Gene Day.
Yeah, he was terrific. Definitely one of my favorites of the period, and to this day, if we go back and look at those, I haven't looked at them in a little while. I hope they reprint those on nice paper. I think they're reprinting the Master of Kung Fu stuff, and like there's an omnibus coming out or something, but it'll be a few years before they get to the Gene Day stuff. Did you see DC is printing facsimile editions of Batman Year One?
No,
I found
I did
that,
not see that.
But they just this week canceled the foil versions. I don't know if you guys have seen I bought the one, I remember I showed you when I got it, the Hulk 181 foil that Marvel put out. But DC's also been putting out foil cover facsimile edition for like, an extra $2 or $3. But it's just kind of ruins the facsimile. I have to imagine there's most facsimile edition people don't want a foil cover.
No,
I know I don't.
Yeah, I'm more like I wanted to feel like what it would have been if I first picked it up. So to me, it's like the foil is a nice thing. I just don't need it.
No, especially when, if you were to look at all the foils on these are warping. So it's like if you have the comic like my comic shop has like the comic standing up, and the foil cover kind of opens up because it won't lay flat. So I have to imagine a lot of facsimile edition people aren't interested in that at all, especially when the foil covers are an extra $2 or $3 on top of a rather expensive price for some of these. I passed on this week's facsimile edition because I already had 10 comics, but it was some detective comic issue that had the first Penguin in it. I can't remember what issue it was. I was just like, it was $7, I think. I'm like, maybe if it's here on a week that I don't have a lot of comics, but otherwise I don't want to pay an extra. I already had $30 worth of comics, so I was like, I don't need another $7 on top of that. What's Sleepy saying here? There are recent Master of Kung Fu omnis from 5 or 6 years ago, but only one issue on Marvel Unlimited, which is strange. That is strange.
Or not. I mean, the way they sometimes publish things in Marvel Unlimited is no rhyme, no reason.
Yeah. The 90s fans recently returned to comics, love the foil. Yeah, but I don't I don't think the 40s fans have returned and love the foil. We need some 90s fans to love that foil. Let's see what else. Oh, here, this is my third In Hell comic. Grimm issue number 13. Stephanie Phillips, Flaviano, Enrico Renzi. Let's see, who's the letterer? I'm not going to give the letterer short shrift. Lettered by Tom Napolitano. Napolitano. But this one, once again, this one is an interlude. We get our main character is this woman who is a Grim Reaper, but there's other Grim Reapers, and two of her friend Grim Reapers. One of them was like this 80s rock star Grim Reaper, and this other Grim Reaper is this I don't know what his occupation was, but he's sort of this gay fashion guy, Grim Reaper. Oh, I guess he's a writer, of course. So this is the flashback to his story, which was really kind of poignant and interesting. I really liked this issue. Like this issue is like a done in the one this guy's story. And he's in hell because his boyfriend who was dying begged him to mercy kill him. And so he did, but just the fact that he killed someone made him end up in hell and be a Grim Reaper. And now he's cast down into hell. That was it. He was supposed to go to hell, but instead he got recruited to be a Grim Reaper. But now some woman who's running hell got him. She's like, you escaped hell. You should be down here, and got him down there. So now he's in hell. His friends are trying to get him. So this is all about his guilt in having to kill his boyfriend. As a mercy killing. So it was a really well done issue. Liked the art, liked the writing. So this has been a solid book, Grim. Like the storytelling has been terrific. Whoever this artist is, Flaviano, the one named artist, has been doing a good job. What was our price on this? Yes, and it's only $3.99. I noticed a lot of the first issue of Boom Studios books are $5, which is why I've been passing on them. There's a lot of good artists out there whose names I don't know, even though I read their comics.
The Portuguese artist that Mind the Comics said you might like. My comic shop owner, he's trying to publish a few things in English, but since he's publishing now is erratic at best. He gets stuff. He wanted to become a serious publisher a few years ago, but then he had to step back because of lack of time, and now he puts out stuff whenever he wants to. But if he could put out everything in some of more than half of that thing in English. I know that a couple of his comics appeared in previews, but try to find an obscure publisher is some in page 356 of the previous catalog. You know how it is.
Yeah. I don't know if it's better for publishers like that Marvel and DC aren't in there anymore, or worse.
Yeah. Well, the problem is always how do you educate the store owners to look at the rest of the catalog?
Yeah. They don't want to because the customers don't want to.
Yeah.
That's just the I look at my final order cutoff from my comic shop, but I never look through the previews catalog. And everything in final order cutoff isn't. Everything in previews isn't on my final order cutoff email. He puts most stuff in there, but he doesn't put the stuff that nobody orders, which means nobody's going to order it.
Yeah. Well, whenever I always went through. There was a time when I made sure to always go through the previous catalog, because there might be a collected edition that I might like, and I bought a couple that were out of the ordinary that I did like, and those were ordered for me. He wouldn't have them on the shelf. Okay.
Back when I was collecting collected editions, 2008, 2009, I used to go to this one website. It's like the Marvel Masterworks website, I think it's called. Unaffiliated with Marvel. But it started out being a website where they would try to tell Marvel what Masterworks to put out. They'd come up with all the issues and this and that, and it kind of evolved into this website that kept track of all the collected editions that were coming out. So I used to go there whenever new previews come out, they'd have a list of all the new collected editions coming out from everybody. So I used to go there and look through them and find what collected editions were coming out. They were a good resource.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially someone else did the homework.
And here's one more thing I got this week. The Forged issue number 4 came out. This is a magazine-sized one. It's, I counted 46 pages of comics, and it's got back matter too. $7 magazine size. So that's a good bargain. That's 2 comics. So it's 2 $3 comics in here, or $3.50 comics. But man, this issue was beautiful. Let me show you some of the art from it. The artist is, well, first let me show you some of the art. Ooh, that one's a little gross. Camera just went blank. There we go. Just some, that covers, where's some prettier ones? There we go. Some nice pretty colors there. This is about that military team in the future sci-fi book. But here, in this issue, they're sort of back at the home base talking. Oh, there's some nice sci-fi drawing. Mm-hmm. But I was really impressed by the visuals in this issue. By who does it? Eric Troutman, Mike Henderson. And the crediting is a little weird. Maybe it's Mike Henderson, because it says created by, and we've got story, Greg Rucka and Eric Troutman, and art, Eric Troutman and Mike Henderson. So it's like they're all on one line. So I don't know if Eric Troutman and Mike Henderson do the art, or just Mike Henderson does the art. I don't know.
From what it looks like, Greg Rucka came up with the concept of Let's Troutman write, and then Henderson would do the art?
Could be. The colors are by Nolan Woodard. The colors are terrific. Letters by Ariana Maher, Maher. Designed by Eric Troutman. But, this, like I said, the first story arc was 3 issues, but since they're, 46 pages an issue, that's nearly 150 pages of story in the first. I didn't read any of this back matter yet. I figured, well, this is just sort of some background info. It's not as dense as the Lazarus background info. But there's background info on this world of the Forged and the future it takes place in. But I really, really enjoyed this. Oh, here's a nice page. I got to show you this one. I like that establishing shot over there. Some nice pictures. Just the colors are nice. The drawing is nice. There's some nice sci-fi drawing. It did the job for me. But that's The Forged, number 4. My war name is Victory, Eternal. But this issue was sort of all about the politics of the day and age, because they were back at base in some royal palace with royal intrigues going on. And the first 3 issues were about the mission they were on. So it's good stuff. Sleepy Reader, I am reading Cyber Force by Silvestri and Friends for the first time. Every one of his covers are an excuse for a foiled cover. That's one of those. I have like 25 issues of Cyber Force that I bought as they came out in the 90s. And I remember nothing about them. I remember enjoying it. I come out every month or so, and I'd read the issue and go, "That was all right."
Yeah, it was pretty superficial.
What was that?
It was pretty superficial.
Yeah, there was not anything special.
No, the characters never got that much development. Although people seem to think that Ripclaw was deep.
Yeah,
it's kind of
ripoff is deep.
Yeah, the Wolverine ripoff is the deep one. But yeah, the thing is, Silvestri tried to reboot Cyberforce more than once. Try to pare it down and see if he could do something that was solid. But even then, it looked like he was trying to come up with a concept that he could do a movie on.
Yeah. I think I quit Cyberforce when Silvestri did. Whatever issue that was. But it was funny. I just saw Don the Comic Book Junkie. He's still making YouTube videos of his. He does a lot of flea market hauls, and he really is a comic book junkie. He's got, I think, 42,000 comic books, and so he he likes to go to the flea market and get these comic books for like 25 cents, 50 cents. So he gets these like long runs of comic books from the 90s or whenever that I'm just like, wow, he is never going to read these. He's got too many comic books to ever read. And I'm just like, well, but like you said, like his name says, he's a comic book junkie. So one of the things he picked up in the last couple of weeks was Cyberforce. And I think he got nearly the entire run of Cyberforce from like the 50-cent box. And there was like 40 issues. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize there were that. Because like I said, I probably stopped around 15 or 20. Like I said, whenever Mark Silvestri stopped. He was just showing the issues and, here's 19, 20. And I was like, man, there was a reason I didn't go for any of those. They're all like, all the covers were like, third-rate Image books when all the original Image guys weren't doing their books anymore, and even their assistants weren't doing their books anymore. They found some random guy they could hire.
Assistants.
Yeah. It was just kind of like, ooh, that's enough Cyberforce for me. I'm glad I never picked. But sometimes he picks up books. I'm like, man, there is no reason to have that book in your collection except just to have it, because they're never gonna read it. But he is a comic book junkie. He loves going to the flea market and getting new comic books. Just got a complete run and exchange. 2 Neil Gaiman books for 35 comics. Hey, not bad.
Which Neil Gaiman books?
Yeah, which I was just reading a Neil Gaiman story today. The Trouble with Susan. I think Dark Horse put. I think there's a bunch of different artists on it, but I was reading the Craig Russell issue. And man, is Craig Russell's stuff nice. I mean, it is just so beautiful. I'm just not a fan of Neil Gaiman's writing. I mean, it's good, but I just don't. I was reading it going, It's more Neil Gaiman waxing poetic about heaven and hell. Well, mostly heaven in this one. And an old lady looking back on her life, and an old lady and a young lady contemplating death and heaven. And I'm just like, he's just got nothing interesting to say to me on the subject of death and heaven. And that's his favorite subject.
Mm-hmm.
And people love him for it. He's got something interesting to say to a lot of people on that subject, just not me. But man, was the Craig Russell artwork nice. Holy cow. I sometimes I look at Craig Russell artwork and it's like so nice it's painful. I'm like, man, he's one of the guys I look at and go, wow, there is no way I could ever pull off anything like this. That's just crazy nice. And I usually don't do that with artists. I didn't know, but after Silvestri gets tired to draw, David Finch keeps drawing till the end. My eyes are bleeding. Oh, Finch was on that. Okay.
Yeah, I thought Darkness would have been its first work. I didn't, but I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Like I said, I bailed after Silvestri. I may have bought an issue or two. I don't even know. I'd have to look.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not a fan of David Finch, but his artwork was appropriate for the Darkness. But when he went to Marvel, that didn't really work. He stifled.
I know his name. I've seen covers of his, but I don't know that I've ever read anything by David Finch. He's one of those guys I look at and go, and move on to someone else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know there's people who like him, so he's a semi-big name. But what has he done since The Darkness? Has he made anything in the last 10 years?
He was on Batman for a while, wasn't he?
Oh, that's right. He was on Batman. Okay.
Yeah, at Marvel, he was on Moon Knight.
Moon Knight. Oh, that's right. He was on Moon Knight now. Did he do Moon Knight with Warren Ellis, or was he the guy after or before Warren Ellis? I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Hansel and Gretel and Stardust.
He did Hansel and Gretel? I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't Stardust the one that that Golden Age guy did? What's his name?
Golden Age guy.
I've got 2 books on the. Maybe it was Star something. Golden Age guy, very famous for doing crazy comics. I got 2 books back there by him. I'm gonna have to look up his name. You know who I mean. You just can't think of him either. I think he made Christian comics it was before Warren Ellis.
Al Hartley?
No, not Al Hartley. Hold on, I'm gonna walk back and get the book. Let me see if I got it.
Yeah, the only thing that I recall that I read from Neil Gaiman was doing some stuff with the Asgardians. Not his own mythology. Yeah, his own mythology. Books, not comic books. And I found those to be interesting. But for the life of me, I couldn't retell the story.
Fletcher Hanks is who I'm thinking of.
Oh, Fletcher.
What was the name of his comic? Stardust, the Super Wizard.
Yeah, no, but that's not it. Neil Gaiman had an illustrated novel called Stardust that came out through Vertigo.
Yeah.
And they did a movie on it.
I was just free associating Stardust with this guy.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing in my brain, trying to remember him, but I couldn't. I bought a hardcover wizard biography book on Mark Silvestri for $2 this week. I love artist bio books. It was a great read for $2 from his start till 2006. Oh, look at that. I didn't know Wizard put out autobiographies.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I think I would have bought that. But yeah, until 2006, then Mark Silvestri stops being interesting because he sells off Top Cow to a video game company. And that's when he starts trying to reboot everything. So he can make movies.
Fletcher Hanks. I first saw him. I've got a couple of books called Art Out of Time that are good. Unknown comic geniuses of the past or something. And Fletcher Hanks and a lot of guys like Golden Age comic strip and comic book guys who are mostly forgotten these days are in it. Those are some pretty good books. Art Out of Time. Matter of fact, I think one of them I have is autographed by somebody. I forget. I just know I had it, and my friend Ed gave me the autograph for. I had like volume 1, and my friend Ed gave me volume 1 and 2, and I think one of them was autographed, and I gave one of the volumes away to someone since I had 2 of them. Neil Gaiman's Stardust is done with Charles Vess.
Right,
Okay,
right.
Okay, I remember that one now. Yeah, that one is famous. You're right. Especially since I'm on Charles Vess's Facebook page. So
yeah, I never saw.
Way to spoil the ending, Paulo.
I'm sure that there are interviews with Mark Silvestri that you can try to find online. And the thing is, I never actually read Stardust. I only saw the movie. There was a debate on the Grand Comics database mailing list whether Stardust should be on the database or not, because it's not a comic.
Okay,
it's an illustrated novel.
Yep. that Fletcher Hanks Stardust stuff is pretty good though. I mean, I thought it was going to be one of those so bad it's good comics, but it's not. He was actually talented, and it's actually good readable comics. It's just wacky. He's just out there. But it really
artist? Is that the same artist that does that superhero woman that has a skull face? Blonde woman?
Yes, Fatima or something like that.
Fatima. Mm-hmm.
Fantoma, yeah.
Yes, that's him.
Oh, okay.
That's right. I forgot about her.
I did see this because I remember like seeing her books out for a while, and I was like, that was a very interesting style. And I do remember that Stardust character being around that same time, but I don't think I ever picked those up. But I did find it visually interesting.
Right. Let's see. The last comic I got this week was Time Before Time, issue number 27, which seems to be coming to. It's supposed to be coming to a close with issue 30. They've hinted at, but they haven't really said it. And this was just another good issue. This is the one that's about time travel, and there's two criminal syndicates that run time travel, and our two lead characters are trying to get out from under the thumb of the criminal syndicates. The one character, since the beginning, the former FBI agent, has become obsessed with taking down this criminal syndicate. And so they set a trap for her in this issue. So this issue is all about her walking into this trap. Meanwhile, her old friend, who from the beginning of the comic, who she thinks is dead because he's been dying of of radiation poisoning from having to work for the syndicates and these time travel machines that aren't well shielded. And he really has had a horrible fate these last, 6 issues, because he ended up killing the son of the crime boss. And it just kind of happened. He didn't really mean to. It was just part of the plot. He ended up killing the son. So the crime boss wants his revenge on him. So what the crime boss did was eventually he tracked him down. He captured him. Meanwhile, his ex-FBI agent friend thinks he's dead. But he wouldn't let him die. He found some medicine that would treat the radiation sickness and keep it at bay as long as he took the medicine. And he also, here's another thing. During the time when this Tatsuo, I think his name is, was working for the criminals, he had a best friend. His best friend ended up dying because of his actions too. He ended up, like, for some reason his best friend ended up dying. But the criminal boss goes, your friend died, but if you don't stay here and work for me, I'm going to send somebody back in time to kidnap him before he dies, and I'm going to spend years torturing him. He's like, because you can't change the past in this story. But he's like, I was like, we know he's going to die, but before he dies, I'm just going to torture him. He's going to spend the last months of his life just being tortured, and then I'm going to send him off to die. So Tatsuo has been stuck working for this corporate boss. So in this issue, he's trying to save his friend. He's off his meds. He's sick and dying. And it's just like, oh, man, this guy's had a horrible fate. I hope he has a happy ending sometime. We'll see. But it's just been a good book by Rory McConville and Declan Shalvey are the writers. And Jeffo is the artist on this one. Geoffo. I don't know. That just cracks me up, Jeffo. Chris O'Halloran is the colorist. And Hassan Atsmani Elauho is the letterer, the name I can never say, who goes by his initials, I think, online. Yeah, Paulo told us.
Yeah. I don't know if I haven't seen his channel in a while, his YouTube channel, but he had one, and it was quite popular for a while because he taught the principles of how to use lettering to complement the storytelling.
Right.
And as well as how to apply, how to design a page to take the balloon's placement into account,
Right.
because we need to do the art, leaving space not only for the lettering but also for the lettering to flow with the artwork.
Right.
So he was good at that.
But Time Before Time is the best book that no one's reading. Good book.
Strip Panel Naked. That's the name of the channel.
Strip Panel Naked.
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel is done with Lorenzo Matadi. First printing was
Ooh.
2014, and they have a new print this year. Hint: Kingpin Books has got some copies.
Okay, so there's some crazy artwork in there.
Let me see. Did I run through all my books? Let me double check. There were a lot this week. There's Forged, Time Before Time, Hey Kids Comics, Nocterra, Madam Satan, Grimm, Spawn, Batman and the Joker, In Hell We Fight, and Saga. Yup, ran through them all.
So you have one book ended. You have one book on its way to ending.
Yeah.
Do you have replacement books lined up at
I
least
have
in your
two.
mind yet?
I have 2 books ended, Hey Kids Comics and Nocterra. This one is on its way out, so that's 3. That was a one-shot. Grimm's still going. Spawn and Hell We Fight and Saga are still going. I think this... I'm going to have 1 week that's only facsimile comics. I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago on Final Order Cutoff, I'm like, I have no comics coming this week. I looked at my, there was like 3 or 4 facsimile comics coming out. I'm like, all right, this is all facsimile comic this week. And then the next week, I think there was like 2 or 3 comics on my list. So I found like 3 first issues to try out. So I don't have anything lined up yet, but this is when I try out first issues. When it's like you said, I got 2 books ended, 1 book ending, and another 3 issues. So it's time to. That's when I decide, when I get that Final Order cutoff, and I'm like, oh, I only got 2 comics this week. Let's see what I can find. But so I don't like one. I know I ordered was this. Where is it? I think I saw an ad for it in Hell We Fight, which is funny because I saw the art and went, oh, I don't like that art so much. Midlife or How to... Whoa. All of a sudden, a new screen came up. I don't know what happened. Midlife or How to Hero at 50. I know I ordered the first issue of that.
Oh, I heard that. When someone on TikTok was talking about it.
Brian Buccellato, or Buccellato, as Steve pronounces it. Stefano Simeone, and Hassan Atzmain Elhau. Though when I saw the artwork, I was like, "Ooh, I'm not a huge fan of this artwork." It's this sort of modern, no inking artwork. I was like, well, and I didn't want to read this preview since I got the first issue coming. So I'm like, I'll check out the first issue, and if I like it, we'll see. But just looking at the artwork, I went, because I only decide by their covers when it's Final Order cutoff. Because I click on the link and they have the cover. That's it. Hassan Chop.
Sequential Geek.
Hello.
What's up?
Good evening. Good evening. In Hell I still love that title too. In Hell We Fight.
Yeah. It's a good title.
That's a good title. That may be my favorite title in a while. In Hell We Fight. Even most of the time in Hell they're running. Everybody else is fighting. Because they ain't going to win fights against those big monsters. Let's see, do I get anything else back there to show you? Nope. I'm just double checking. double checking to see what's back there. You read anything good in a while, Paulo?
No.
No.
I gotta buy comics, but they cost money.
They cost money. We're gonna have to send Paulo a care package one day of comics.
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't do whenever some YouTubers do giveaways. I never give up my name because I know it's not cheap to ship stuff over the Atlantic.
Right. Well, we'll get everybody to chip in and send you a box of stuff. Oh shit! Y'all have been online for over 2 hours. I missed it. Jared, how is your jacket going? I was gonna spend all day painting on it, but then I had to do a lot of bad idea stuff. So tomorrow, but I have
Hopefully you get your painting supplies going against you.
This is not paint. Yeah, the cape. It'll be going over my shoulders this way. Actually, the black is paint. What I ended up doing was I did my color sketch on the computer. I painted all the black line in. And then most of this here is marker. I just used marker to color in the color sketch so it'd be easier to paint over. So, though it looks pretty well underway, it still needs to be painted and not markered. But I like the way it's coming out so far. And I have to I'm going to paint the eyes on the front too, so I'll have to do that. But it's coming out all right. Before I got a ton of bad idea work, I was planning on spending the day painting it, but I spent about an hour. Tomorrow. I'll spend tomorrow painting it. And I still got to figure out a finished technique too, so got a lot to do. Cool. Thanks. I got some books for you, Costa. That artwork for a duster jacket, it is for a duster jacket. You got it. I used to wear a painted duster all through the 90s. It's gotten into the 2000s. But it's gotten old and fallen apart, so I bought a new one. A new used one off of eBay. And I'm painting the new I'm like, my coats have been boring for years now. I'm tired of boring coats. I want an interesting coat. Have you ever put your artwork on a car or van? I haven't, but I almost did. One day I got an email from a Jared Osborne because I think he was somebody who I think he was on the West Coast somewhere who did those car, what are those vinyl things they put on car in lieu of painting them? Like you can have your whole car done up in like vinyl clings, basically.
Yeah, the thing is a bitch to clean out. I don't understand why people like it. But it's not real car people who like it. It was a design. It was a design thing back in the late 70s, early 80s. Putting vinyl tops on cars instead of
a wrap.
Instead of
I think that's what it's called, a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
But this Jared Osborne, he had a business making car wraps, and he went to my website because he was checking out if jaredosborne.com because for his car wrap business or something. And he was like, "Oh, if you ever want to make a car wrap, let me know." But nothing ever came of it. I would send you a care package, Paulo, but I spent all my money on Jared's dolphin package. Yep.
Uh-huh. We need more dolphins. And speaking of care packages and sending stuff, Sequential Geek has do you still have the contest going on? I think you still do on Sequential Geek's channel. So stop by, see if you still have some books for you. You have to watch his videos. I can't remember, but you have to watch his videos.
Oh, okay. Well, check out Sequential Geeks channel. I'm getting punchy.
Our favorite fan from Cleveland.
The great land of Cleveland. Yeah, laughing. I have a contest. LOL. God, it was like I can't remember when it was. 2016, 2017. It was like every comic book person on YouTube was having a contest. I actually won one or two of them. Paulo Costa, one of the creators of Santos Sisters, Fake Peter, had dropped me a comment just saying hi for that recent haul I did showing that comic. Didn't get back when I asked about the Linclair.
Yeah, I read your latest response to my comic, because I made a comment that he was showing the Santos Sisters comic, and I mentioned that it kind of looked like Willie Vanderstein, who was a Belgian artist from the Linclair days.
There's one person playing the contest. LOL. So it's like a non-contest.
Go play. You're a guaranteed winner. You're a guaranteed
I never
winner.
read any of the comics I win in the contest. You know what? I'm not sure I have. Matter of fact, I have some Batman issues that have been sitting right next to my desk in a box for years now. That I'm like, I should really read those. Never have. But you know, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, I don't want to. I want to join the contest, but I don't. I don't want to win it. Just send the comics to someone else or something like that. Just because I'm like, you know, sending the comics to someone is part of the contest. I got a JR Jr. autographed comic from Manny NYC. I remember that from some contest I won. I won that from him one day. I never read any comics from Rip Reed's Slab. You won though. Oops. Yeah, Sleepy's got enough comics to read. He, extra ones he doesn't need.
Mm-hmm.
Don the comic book junkie is probably the only one with more comics to read than Sleepy.
Yeah, and then Sleepy has the time to spend 1.5 hours discussing those comics.
Yeah, well, he's retired. He's a man of leisure. Not that I don't. And when I say Sleepy has a lot of comics to read, I mean new comics, like because he, not even new to him comics. Like I've got plenty of comics to read, but I keep up every week with my comics, so I don't have a lot of new comics to read. Though there's probably still plenty of collected editions in here that, if I ever read them, haven't been read in 20 years. But Don the comic book junkie has the most comics he's never read in his collection, since he keeps buying 200 comics a week at $0.25 a piece or something. There's no way to keep up with that. I almost bought multiple comics of Mr. X #1 this week, but then thought better of it. Because I was on eBay looking at stuff, as one does. And I was like, oh, how much is a comic of Mr. X #1 raw? For no reason. I already have one. I've got a slabbed one. I got a raw. I don't need one. And some guy, some shop in Florida or something was selling like $4 a piece for a Mr. X #1. And it was like, $5 shipping. They, of course, ship multiple books for the same $5. And it's like, oh, I have 5 copies of this. I was like, ooh, I could get 5 copies of Mr. X #1 for about $25 to $30. Maybe I should do that. And I was like, why?
Do not do it.
There's no real reason to.
No. Oh, I get it.
Funny is that I do know some comic book people, comic book artists, who loves a particular book, and every time they see it, they just keep buying it.
Yeah.
Buzz does that on one of the Mike Golden Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
He says whenever he sees it, and one time he showed his box just full of this one comic, but he also gives them out to other artists. Like, oh, you want to learn how to draw comics? You got to study this book. So he'll give them out too, but he buys them as well.
Mm-hmm. But Jared, I know why you keep buying the Mr. X #1. You're going to open your own speculation channel and convince people that Mr. X #1 is the comic to have.
There you go. There's a plan. I'm a man of leisure, and I have about 3,000 comics to catch up on. The entire run of Savage Sword of Conan he's bought in the last few years. It's like, that's a lot of comics to catch up on. Chilling, listening to music, reading a stack of books, nothing wrong with that. Nope. Though I don't listen to music when I'm reading my comics. I like quiet.
Yeah, I don't want another kind of distraction. I've been finding that reading comics on the iPad or on my computer through the Marvel Ultimate, I forget the name of the Marvel Unlimited. I find that I read excuse me. I find that I read the comic book faster that way.
Yeah.
I'm wondering it's because it just doesn't have ads in it to distract me. Because sometimes I'll look at, especially if it's an older book, I look at the ad as well because it's just looking at something historic with it. Where it's like I read, as I mentioned before, rereading some of those Amazing Spider-Man books that I wasn't reading at all. I happened to like look up and realize I went through 9 issues.
You also can flip right through them.
Right, you can flip through
it's
them.
Just like,
sometimes I enjoy the guided view.
Right.
Just because it makes it interesting.
When you're reading, when you're reading a comic, you're just kind of gentle with it. So you take a moment to turn the page. With like digital, you just like flip, flip, flip. But what's weird about me liking a certain thing, I've been my schedule has changed this semester, so that I've been going to the comic shop before I commute in. So I hit the comic shop about 11:30. Have to catch like a 12:20 train, but I've been like leaving my comics in the car all day because it's like I don't want to read them on the train. Like I'm perfectly okay reading it. Like I want to read my comics in my seat back there with my feet up, relaxing. Don't want to read them on a train. I'm perfectly okay reading novels on the train. I don't want my comic experience to be reading them on the train. I like reading them in my chair.
And I find that I'm enjoying reading comics like first thing in the morning before I do anything else. So I have a cup of coffee and I can just read my comics. And it's like I
don't rush
get more
to read them
done
when I get home and I'm tired. Nope.
Exactly.
Well, we should sign off for the evening. I'm surprised I haven't done any Mr. X sketch covers. Yeah, I haven't. I still read them in public transport. I read Peep Show on public transport this week on Tuesday.
You just did that so that nobody would sit next to you.
I even walked around Secaucus Junction holding it. I didn't want to put it back in my bag. I wanted it out. Right, isn't it common in Japan for to leave manga on public transport or advocate for other? Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, so everybody have a good evening out there. It's time for Paulo to get to bed. Jared to sit in his easy chair. Have a good night.
Have a great weekend. Have a good night.
We'll catch you next time.
Take care.